Mike Radich here, and I'm now joined on the phone by RFA Bantamweight Maureen Riordon. Maureen,
Hi.
How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing good. Maureen, you got a fight coming up July 25th at RFA 16. You're going to be making your pro debut. Since basically it is a fight week, I mean, the fight's taking place on Friday and today's Saturday, so basically it is fight week, you could say. What's your schedule like from now until the fight?
It's crazy.
Right.
Training, at this point, the training's done, so I keep moving. I'm on the weight cut portion of it now, so just going through, the motions and make sure I'm sweating and clarifying any last minute, little details that you have, things like that. But I'm still training every day, and we have a few, promotional events that we're doing, and then I'm very, very picky about the personal time. Usually I kind of struggle about taking personal time, but fight week, I'm very clear that to become mentally prepared, I have to have, my time away from everything and that centering time. So fight week for me is more of that grounding and starting to feel good, let my body heal, get ready for the big day. So.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. You're going to be taking on Maureen Riordon. What do you know about her?
I know some stuff, and I've actually learned more through doing the interviews than anything else, but I don't actually look up my opponents. My coaches do. They look them up. They do all this research. If there's something my opponents do in the video that maybe exposes a hole in my game, we'll address that. But I'm really big on, visualization, and that, my job is to go in there as the athlete that, RFA came to me to fight for. My job isn't to change everything about me based on, something I see about somebody else from a fight, 6 months ago or something like that, So I let the coaches do all that, and just for me, I really focus on, me and what are my strengths, who's the athlete that I am, and what am I bringing to the table. And I find that has always worked better for me than letting any of that be kind of dictated by the public or, really what other people's opinions are. So, but I know that, her record, she's 3-1. All of her wins have come from, either a knockout or a TKO in some fashion, but, she's winning from stoppages, so she's obviously a great striker. I know she's also a purple belt. I assume, if I'm wrong, my apologies, but I believe she's a purple belt in BJJ, and so she looks like a very well-rounded opponent. I'm very excited for it. I believe it's, definitely one of the most, more challenging opponents that I've been given. But our styles, all of my wins are also, TKO and knockout as well. So it should be just a great fight, and I'm really looking forward to that for, both of us. I think we're going to, no matter who walks out with their hand raised, I think both of us are going to be better fighters from this experience. So.
Now, with your philosophy on fighting being, going through a training camp being, you just focus on yourself, how much has it helped you preparing for this fight? I know it's been, 4 or 5 weeks you've had notice for this fight, but your opponent that's going to be stepping in the cage on the 25th is not your original opponent. You're supposed to fight Lauren Barefoot. Does this philosophy on fighting really help you with the scenario you're walking into of, yes, it's not exactly short notice, but she isn't your original opponent?
Absolutely. I mean, and I think maybe that was part of it too, because I think if there was one thing every female fighter can relate on, it's trying to get a fight, and then once you get a fight, having the fight actually go through, or having it be the same, opponent that you originally signed on for. I mean, that's so rare that, the person you face on fight night is the same one that, was originally suggested. So, I became very familiar with that early on and learned that, I'm glad, I've kind of always had this mentality, but I was reassured that it was a good mentality, because when the opponent would switch last second, it was a relief to know that I focused on me. I took a fight, actually a title fight, ended up being available at literally a last-second notice. It was just right place, right time. Won the co-main event, got injured. I happened to be at weight. I was fighting on the card, doing a boxing match, and when the co-main event didn't show up, I said, hey, I'll take it. And so I fought, twice in one night, and I think, obviously I didn't know anything about my opponent, and think it works for me because I don't go in there prepared for any one individual person. And if an opponent switches, I don't have to redo my whole camp. Those first, 5-6 weeks, I think it was, that I was preparing for Lauren, weren't a waste of my time. I definitely didn't lose anything by it, the opponent changing. So I'm glad for the mentality. I'm glad I'm able to work that way. I know a lot of fighters, they get crazy if they don't look up their opponents, so I'm glad that's not an issue for me.
Right. Now, are you disappointed that you won't be fighting Lauren Barefoot on the 25th, or does it really not matter to you?
No, I was excited for that fight. I'm not one, everybody always asks, what's your dream matchup? And I don't have one. I very literally do not have a single name in my mind that I want to fight. I want the promoters to give me challenges, and I enjoy fighting, people from different areas because it exposes both of us to new demographics, and I think that helps women's MMA. That's a very forefront in my mind goal, is to just really help women's MMA. But, once you know you're fighting somebody, and Lauren, even though she hasn't fought in a while, Lauren really made a name for herself. And I can't tell you, the second that fight was released, the number of messages I got about, just what a great fighter that Lauren is, and I was really biting off a lot, I was really looking forward to it. And so when I found out she got injured, one of the first things I did was send out well wishes and let her know that when she heals up, if she would like the matchup later down the road, I'd be honored. And but if it doesn't happen again, I don't have any bone in my teeth that I need to fight anybody specific or anything. I'm happy to fight. I'm happy for the challenge, and I'm just happy to be able to get out there and show everybody what us girls can do,
Right. Now, how did this deal with RFA all come together? Because obviously it makes sense that you're on this card, you're a local girl, it's a local show, it makes sense for you to be fighting for them, but was there something in the works before they decided they were coming here? Was there ever any talks?
Actually, I signed with them back in March, and there was anticipation of maybe a show here, and we knew if there was going to be a future show here, that would obviously be best for everybody involved, because it's better marketing to fight locally. But when I signed with them and they first approached me, I was already getting ready to fight for Glory World Series, and so when they signed me, I need to take Glory, and then we'll see how Glory goes if I'm available for a fight right away, and just kind of see what comes up. And they had a fight out in LA, and different little things coming up, and so it worked out. I mean, we were initially kind of thinking this fight, but it wasn't until after Glory that we started finalizing all of that. So, but yeah, I was very, very honored to be offered a multi-fight contract for my pro debut for MMA, and at the same time I was making my pro debut in kickboxing with Glory World Series, and it's the biggest kickboxing card in the world, and based off my performance at Glory, the next day I was offered a co-main event spot in Quebec up in Canada on the first all-female, all-pro boxing card, and so I'll make my pro debut in each of the disciplines within 3 months, 2 weeks of each other.
Right.
So it's a busy summer. It's probably going to be the most memorable summer of my life, I think.
Now, between the three, Glory, RFA, and then the boxing event that you're going to be taking part in, what's the bigger opportunity?
I think that's difficult to answer, because I think it's like comparing apples and oranges.
Sure.
I mean, because none of the record in one doesn't at all affect the other one. So, however Glory turned out wasn't at all going to dictate my career with RFA, and however RFA turns out won't at all affect my career with Nordic Coliseum Boxing in Canada. So, but Glory, obviously they're such a huge name worldwide. I definitely noticed a difference as far as from the promotional side of things. That was very good for me to get my name out there, and there's a lot of people definitely that I have been introduced to that I otherwise would not have known. But RFA is also, their signage rate of fighters to the UFC, and all the opportunities with Invicta, they're a huge card. So they're also again, I've noticed a big increase in followers just from the RFA community that are following, all of their fighters. So, and then, of course, Nordic Coliseum boxing is, it is so cool to know that someday I'm going to be sitting in a rocker talking to my grandkids saying, your grandma was, on the first ever all-female pro card, and I get to be featured as the co-main events, which is just thrilling. So I don't know. I think all of them are just, I think I've been given 3 amazingly huge opportunities this summer, and I'm blown away, I'm ecstatic, and just thrilled that after the personal journey I've kind of gone through to get here, that this is actually happening. So it's amazing.
Mm-hmm. Now, with you being so active between the 3 sports, a lot of people are like, this is kind of crazy. You're dabbling in all kinds of other sports. There's going to be critics out there be like, why don't you just stick to one? Why don't you just solely focus on kickboxing, or solely focus on boxing, or solely focus on MMA? There's all these people out there who would think, try to be great at one, don't try to be good at all these other sports. Why dabble in more than one sport? Is it because of the fact that, like you mentioned earlier, there's a lot of women out there who are just doing one, who are sitting around waiting for a phone to ring, and they're wasting away and not being active? And then on the other hand, is it just something where you love all 3 and you just can't pick one? Why dabble in all these different sports?
Well, I think it's a combination of all of them, and you're right. I can't tell you the number of people that have told me that I am going about this all wrong, and that I'm making a huge mistake, and and even reading just typical principles of success. Focus all of your efforts on one task, and don't become too spread out. But for me, I came into this 4 years ago. I guess 4.5 years ago at this point. It was January of 2010, and I had never done anything athletic before. So when I started training, it was I was very well-rounded, training in all of them. And when I decided I wanted to fight, my goals for my fight career were to get out there, challenge myself, show that anything is possible if you really try, if you really believe in yourself, and that you don't need all these people believing in you. I think too many people are way too concerned and hold themselves back in life because they need all these other people's approval. And I definitely did not get that. It's anything but that. And I wanted to show people that it's still possible. And so the more I could challenge myself, the more I'm kind of saying that message out there. And then my dream is I really want to get into motivational speaking and writing. Post-fight career, that's absolutely where I'm headed. It's what I've always wanted to do with my life. I already do a lot of youth outreach, and I'm very involved in the community, and use the platform that fighting has given me as an opportunity to go help other people where prior to having a known name, I wasn't able to make the same kind of impact. So being able to meet as many different people as possible, different demographics, is very conducive to my long-term careers of what I want to do with my fight career. So MMA is definitely one demographic, and there are some people that are just all around fight fans. But Glory really showed me. Looking at the fan base that came out for that versus the people that are approaching me to come watch RFA, there are kickboxing lovers out there that only want to watch kickboxing, and same thing with the other 2 disciplines. So by me competing in all of them, I'm being exposed to more people. And then you also hit it right on the head. Like I said, it's very difficult to find fights. So if I'm offered a fight, I'm offered an opportunity to go compete and test my skills, and not get that ring rust building up, then I'm absolutely going to do it. As far as if I could do all of them, which one would I pick? I don't know. It would probably have to be a consideration of, where is the fight located, who's the opponent, what's the bigger opportunity to those long-term goals. So.
Now, you started training because you wanted to lose weight and get in shape, but why did you decide to pick fighting as the way to go about achieving this goal? Why fighting?
Well, I think it was kind of an accident. I was going through, everybody goes through that time in their life, and I was looking for a change and really wanted to just revamp everything. I wanted to get healthy. I knew that meant meeting new people and surrounding myself with, different ways of thought. And so I was just kind of voicing this to one of my friends at the time, and he trained in mixed martial arts, and he suggested I go over and try it for the cardio, because he's like, the teams, you get to know everybody so well, it kind of becomes your social life, and so you'll meet a bunch of new people and lose some weight, and so when I showed up, though, I think I was expecting more of like a cardio kickboxing class, and was in for a big surprise when I walked in, and it was, more of that, good old gritty fight gym that, what I kind of thought only was in movies sort of thing. So, but yeah, I did it for, I did the free trial, and then I really liked the grappling at first, and I did that for a while, and just, bit by bit, I started just really liking all of it and picking up on all of it. So, but yeah, it was purely a total accident. I thought I was just going to go do something that was a high-calorie burner, meet some new people, and that was that. I had no idea that it was like actual fighting, or that it was being a part of something, so dynamic and so specific. And man, talk about happy accidents in life. I'm certainly glad that happened. So
Right. Now, you mentioned that it was an accident that you started training, but you decided to actually compete. You actually decided to step in the ring. With someone with the background that you had, you weren't an athlete growing up. You didn't play sports. You were competitive, but it was sort of based towards academics and performing arts. Why decide to compete in it? Why did you decide to actually start doing it? And how long into the training were you when you said, "Hey, I think I want to actually fight in a live actual competition"?
The fighting, that one isn't as clear on my timeline as everything else, but not that long. I think maybe 9 months into training, then I was like, you know what? I think I might actually fight, So you start sparring, and you start getting used to getting hit in the face. It's not as violating to your reality, and once you become used to it, and it's just not that big of a deal, I think you get curious, and you get excited about what your teammates are doing. You're around these other people that compete, and, they seem like, they're having a good time, and, all that, but, what made me compete in general, I went like a month after my training, I started training, I went to a grappling tournament, and as far as out of our team, it was only girls that were competing that day, and it just looked really fun, and I was just aware that, I'm like, I've never done something like this before, and I think I'm going to try it, and, but as far as fighting, I really saw, like I said, the opportunity that it gave people that are fighting. I saw how quickly that fan base builds, because people are just, if they love MMA, they love MMA, and they're so supportive of it. And like I said, I've always wanted to do something that would, create a positive impact. And right away I saw an opportunity where if I did this, I could really make something of this to be able to get out there and make that difference I'm hoping to make. And so I think, right off the bat, I was very, very long-term oriented, and, looking at the horizon and seeing, where I could eventually get and working backwards from there. So I think it really always just kind of centers right back to that. I wanted the challenge, and I wanted to be able to show people that, this challenge is attainable. Because I had a lot of people tell me that, it wasn't going to ever amount to anything, that, I should quit. And, and it was said in front of my kids, too. And, raising my boys, I always want my boys to not let anybody tell them they can't do something. And so, I think part of it as well was showing them, watch your mom do things despite everybody telling her not to. So, I think there's a few different reasons, but, it always amounts back to saying that message out.
How old are your sons?
I have 4. I have 2 of my own and 2 stepsons. My 2 boys are 12 and 7, and then my stepsons are almost 13 and 9.
And have they watched you fight?
Actually, for Glory, just a couple months ago, my oldest son, he's been asking me for a while, but I didn't think I was ready to have my kids in the stands. But anyhow, I finally let my oldest go for this last fight, and he loved it, and it turned out to be okay for me. And he actually was just telling me last night that he wants to go to the MMA fight, and was begging to make sure he gets a ticket too. And so, but the other ones have not had an opportunity. My stepson's just schedule; they've been gone when I'm fighting, and then I'm not ready for my 7-year-old to see me flip that switch quite yet.
I see. Now, with the background that you had of not being an athlete growing up, what did your parents say when you went to them and said, "Hey, I'm going to start fighting"? What was their reaction?
I think my whole mentality of you can do whatever you want in your life, it definitely comes from my raising. I mean, my parents, no matter what I've told them I wanted to be when I grow up, they were 100% supportive. And not just in a, okay, we believe in you. It was like, all right, let's sit down and figure out what can we do to help you make this happen. And so when I told my parents, my mom was a little leery, like, what on earth are you thinking? I don't want my baby getting hit, And my dad, I'm not sure if he necessarily voiced it or not, but he didn't appear as leery as my mom did, but both of them right off the bat, they're like, yeah, absolutely do it. My mom didn't know if she would be able to watch, but she did, and she only goes for my fight only, and then she immediately leaves, and sometimes her eyes are covered, sometimes they're not, but even with that, when I told them I wanted to do it, they're like, all right, if this is what you really want to do, let's sit down and figure out how you're going to do it, and they are a huge part of my children's lives. Fight week, you end up having so many obligations you need to get to, and I don't want to drag my kids around to be bored all week long, So they spent a lot of time with Grandma and Grandpa, and actually last week they all went out on a vacation together, and so even there, my parents do whatever they can to support whatever it is I'm doing with my life, and that is amazing, because I know a lot of people that definitely don't have that, and I think that's absolutely what makes my life probably the best, is that support system there.
Mm-hmm. Now, has Fusebox been your gym since day one?
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah, that's where I started, and then about a year after training there, I bought into the company, and now I'm one of the owners.
Oh, I see. And your coach, Michael Sullivan, is he also your boyfriend?
Yes.
Okay, because I saw some pictures on your Facebook, and I'm like, this is a little close for a coach-fighter relationship. I see you two hugging on there.
I think some female fighters try and take the route of pretending they're single. Along that whole fans want what, thinking they'll turn the fans off if they let the fans know they're not attainable. Mm-hmm. I don't go that route. I think that fans don't want to be lied to either, but I don't just slew it out there either, because definitely my supporters are there to support my fight career and not my relationship. So if you don't know us personally, it might be a little bit gray, because we just don't kind of shove it in everybody's face. But yeah, we are in a relationship, and I can't tell you how much that has obviously enhanced my fight career, because it's not just the coaching in the gym, but, like I said, with the whole visualization and not wanting to know much about my opponents, you spend, even if you're the fighter that's in the gym 6 to 8 hours a day, all the rest of that 24 hours, that's just what you're doing with your brain, and that's where most of your training is done in your whole camp, obviously. So, being able to have somebody right there that knows exactly what I'm talking about, exactly what I'm going through. There has definitely been times where I have woken him up at 2 a.m. and said, I had this dream that I got stuck in this situation, and how would I get out of that? And, we turn on the lights, and 2 a.m. we're figuring out how I would get out of that situation. Mm-hmm. And so it's been very interesting.
Mm-hmm. That's very Bas Rutten of you, because Bas Rutten says he used to have dreams about submissions and then wake his wife up and then do it on her. Like,
that's funny. Yeah. I hear a lot of fighters, especially when you're in, for me, it's kind of throughout the entire fight camp. Others, they talk about a lot during fight week, but, you start twitching, because as soon as you close your eyes, you're throwing that right hand, and I can't tell you how many times I've punched the wall above my head, and I've punched Michael in his sleep once. I was sleeping also, but, so it's funny. I think a lot of us talk about that, because, so much of it is just your nerves falling into place, and that happens while you're sleeping. So, but I will definitely wake him up and go through the motions with him, so I don't forget,
I see. Now, is it true that you graduated high school at 16?
It is. I am absolutely a geek at heart, and part of it is a geek. I love learning. I still do. I'm still in school. I'm not sure if I'll ever quit being in school, at least taking a class here and there, just for keeping my brain active and learning. But also, kind of touched base on, I've always been competitive. I just didn't express it athletically, and so it was kind of one of those things like, I want to see if I can skip a grade, and so we worked really hard to, we being, my parents, they supported me in it. We petitioned the high school to allow me to move up a grade, and I had already started early based on kind of where my birthday was at in the calendar year with the school system and stuff. And so, my first day of my senior year, my parents had to drop me off to school because I wasn't old enough to drive, and that was, I struggled a little bit socially in school because there was definitely a lot of teasing about my age. My first day of high school, I had to go sit out in the hall because they were watching Medicine Man, and it was PG-13, and I was not 13 years old and didn't have a permission slip, so that was my first day of high school, was sitting in the hallway while everybody else watched a big girl movie. But, I graduated at 16 and have done, nothing but try to continue to build that resume since.
I see. Now, when you were driving by your old high school and you saw the sign that was promoting this fight, what went through your mind?
Oh my gosh, I can't put in words. I think it was just an emotion. It was just this ecstatic sort of high. Eyes slightly welling. It was surreal. The high school emblem is right there in the background, and immediately I kind of went back to, back when I graduated and thinking about, I was just being a little hoodlum in the little parking lot, being a typical teenager, causing problems and loitering and thinking we were the cool kids. And I never, ever, ever would I have thought, especially not coming from any athletic background, that didn't even have any aspirations to see my name on a marquee somewhere someday. So it was really cool. No matter what marquee it would have been on, it would have been super cool. But there was just something about the placement of it with the high school emblem right there in the background. It was so cool.
Right. Now, has any of the faculty that was there at the time you were in high school, have they reached out to you and been like, are you fighting? Like, do we have the right person? Has anyone reached out to you from the school?
Old classmates, tons of old classmates, but no faculty, no.
Okay. I was just checking. And where exactly is this sign? Like, what is across the street? Because obviously it's taken from the back of the building that is. So we can see the high school from the picture, but what's at the back of the camera? What is that building?
It's Super Tees. They're a T-shirt design printing company, and they're a big time landmark right in that area. Like, everybody knows Dan Terry over at Super Tees. He's an awesome guy. Actually, just did a huge car show earlier today that I was out promoting the fight at and stuff. And so he's a neighborhood favorite kind of thing, and a huge MMA fan and big time supporter of mine. And he just put it out there, and it was kind of a surprise, and super cool surprise, and
I see. Now, how far away do you live from the First Bank Center?
Now I actually live just a few blocks away. Well, I guess a few miles down the road, but it's like 5 minutes from my house, so that's very convenient. I love fighting in the First Bank Center.
Oh, I see. And are you one of those fighters that gets nervous when you fight in your hometown, or are you one of those fighters who gets pumped up by having their hometown crowd? What side of the fence do you fall on?
Neither one. Any crowd I kind of feed off of. I think I enjoy the energy in the room, but I don't get nervous or extra excited or anything based on who the crowd is. I'm actually very mellow on fight day up until it's time to walk out. I'm very particular about wanting to kind of keep those adrenal bursts down, so that way I'm able to use it all right there in the cage. And so I have a very different way of going about it and centering my mentality around the fight. Definitely, you have those fighters that are in the back room that if they're not constantly pacing and if they're not sweating 2 hours before they're on, they're panicking. So just different ways. But yeah, it doesn't. I'm always excited to fight locally, but I love going to the places also, and the exposure's good either way. It's fun to be able to look up in the stands and have so many friends and family there. That's really cool. But I don't think it affects my mentality. I don't think I even really realize it until the fight's over, and that's when all those emotions kind of come flooding in, because my job's done and now I can have fun. So
right. Now, RFA has had 2 shows in Colorado. The first one was in March of last year, and then the second one was in November of last year. Were you at either one of those?
I was at both of them, I believe. Yeah, I was at both of them, and I really enjoy their shows. Before it was RFA, we had Ring of Fire, and then he teamed up with RFA, who was more of a national name. And Ring of Fire was always great, but with RFA came the availability of being televised live on Access TV, and I think that did a lot for it. But it's always been, I think what I had always enjoyed about the card in general, like when it was Ring of Fire, it was one of the best matched cards that we had in the state. And like you knew these fights were tough, and they weren't feeder fights, they weren't mismatched. The matchmaker took a lot of time to do their due diligence to make sure these were done right, and I've seen the exact same from RFA, so it's been fantastic, and they just bring that the higher exposure with being able to have access in on a contract and all that good stuff. So
Now, what means more to you? Is it making your pro debut for RFA or making your pro debut at home?
I think just that I'm fighting for RFA. It's really cool to fight at home. I don't want to sound like that doesn't matter to me. It does. To have my parents be able to be there in the stands, to have my son there, that was cool. I'm glad I let him do it. And I love that, but I think that I'm so honored about being able to fight for RFA that I wouldn't have cared where it was. I'm thrilled to be able to do my professional debut with such a great promotion. That's not very often you get opportunities like that. So.
Now, with all these pro debuts you have stacked up, you fought for Glory, now getting ready to fight for RFA, and then fighting in Quebec after the RFA fight. Are you one of those people that can't sit still? Do you always constantly have to be doing something? Do you always constantly have to have some goal to be reached? It's probably, I think, one of my greatest strengths, and therefore also one of my greatest weaknesses. Absolutely. I can't watch a movie at night without my laptop on doing something with my website or writing up a sponsorship contract, or I always have to be doing something, and I'm good about focusing on what my goal is for right now, but I have this whole list of this is what's next kind of thing, ideas that are in my mind, because I very much believe in the small goals, and especially in the fight career. My goodness, I hope I make it all the way through, but to be realistic, every single one of us fighters is one injury away from retirement, and so I'm always aware of maybe where I would like to go next, and everything I do marketing-wise, it's always with that forethought. So, but yeah, I'm a mom. I professionally compete in 3 different sports. I own the gym and run it. I do a little bit of coaching when I can. I am in school finishing up my bachelor degree for nutrition, and I definitely like a full plate, but I can't really function otherwise. I get more done having too much to do than when I don't have very much to do. I see. Now, because this fight is happening on this Friday, and then you have another fight lined up after this one, will you be right back in the gym on Monday getting ready for that one, or will you take a week off or so?
No, I'll be right back in.
Okay.
Actually, every single fight, my teammates yell at me because I'm in the gym the day after my fight. Unless something happens in the fight that prevents me from going in. But I broke my hand in one fight not too long ago, and got out of the hospital at like 3 a.m. and went home, slept for a little bit, and I was in that gym doped up on painkillers and arm in a sling and working my kicks on the heavy bag the very next morning. So. It also helps me process what went through the fight. I really like going back to the drawing board, whether I won or I lost, and just like when I make Michael wake up in the middle of the night, I want to address, while the memory is fresh in my mind, anything that I felt needed to be worked on or, improved upon. So I'm not necessarily training super hard, but I'm definitely in the gym right away, and whether I had the fight or not. But as far as the intensity of my training, absolutely. Monday, it starts right back into fight camp intensity, and I'm fighting 5 pounds heavier, so the weight cut isn't going to be necessarily a big deal, but I need to make sure I float my weight for 3 weeks. And so I'll be definitely just as disciplined for those final 3 weeks as I am right now.
Right. Now, since you dabble in more than one sport, training-wise, even though the next fight you'll have will be a boxing match, will you still be working on everything else, or will you kind of just, because you have a fight coming up in boxing, just solely focus on that?
What will happen is it will become the heavier focus, but I still do everything.
Okay.
When I was getting ready for Glory, it was a very strong kickboxing camp, but I was still grappling, still making sure that, I was keeping all of that fresh. But that was definitely very much the minority of the camp, and so now even like as I'm getting ready for MMA, we're making sure that we're still, some days when we do mitts, for the most part we're doing MMA relevant striking, but sometimes he switches me over to, okay, this is only boxing, because you can't throw back fists in boxing, you can't throw, everything has to be very, very straight and very specific part of the glove. So even in getting ready for RFA, we're still, every once in a while, we're throwing that in. So that's what will happen for this. I'll definitely do heavier boxing than anything else, but I'll still be grappling and still be keeping my eyes right on the prize of whatever's next, and how I can schedule it. But I have been able to take advantage of way too many last-minute opportunities to take away anything but the advantage of always staying ready. So.
Now, the goal of getting all these pro debuts out of the way, 4 or 5 months, something like that, you'll have 3 pro debuts in 3 different sports. That's an accomplishment. But
is there... 3 months and 10 days.
Okay, 3 months and 10 days. Is there a bigger goal to close out the year? Like, obviously, this is a massive goal because you're dabbling in all these different sports and you're trying to succeed in all these different sports. But is there a bigger goal to close out 2014?
I'm a female MMA fighter. I compete in everything else also, but MMA is definitely the majority of my background, and especially with what I want to do with my sport on, making a good impact, a positive impact, and really building women's MMA. You bet my eyes are absolutely on Invicta. I would love to fight for the promotion. I think that what they do for women's MMA is amazing. I've met a lot of different promoters, and I like a lot of them. But if you ever get the privilege of meeting Shannon Knapp and speaking to her, you can see that this is so much deeper for her than just putting on a good fight. She is very much about building up these women and supporting them and doing what hasn't been done before, and it runs so much deeper. So it's so in line with my philosophy on life, and especially for my career and why I do this, that I would be absolutely thrilled to be able to make it there at some point. So, as far as when that is, they have fantastic matchmakers for that. So as soon as they feel that I am ready, then I hope to get that call.
Maureen, last question. Earlier you said that visualization was a key part of your training. So how do you see this one ending on July 25th?
Again, when I visualize, it's more, I'm always just kind of going through the motions and what I do and just kind of picturing the natural flow of anything. I don't necessarily put a face on anybody. I don't try and force, thinking, okay, if they do this. It's kind of just as it comes. And I try not to anticipate how it's going to go, because that affects the flow of the visualization. Prior to fighting, I was a hippie massage therapist, by the way, owned my own business for a while. So there's like this whole art to visualization and letting it go naturally. So I don't know. I have no preference on where it goes. I think, like I said, we're very well matched, and this could be a great just striking match, or maybe one of us is gonna want to go to the ground and try that area out a little bit more, since definitely what the public knows of us is this other thing. So I don't know, but I'm happy with wherever it goes. I feel ready for wherever it goes, and definitely being able to compete in all these different things. I definitely feel like I am truly a well-rounded person, and I'm really comfortable wherever it goes. And I think whoever wins is going to have to work their tail off for it, and whoever loses can know that they really had to make somebody, that other person really work to win. So I see this as a great opportunity for us both. I'm really excited.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Maureen, real quick before I let you go, do you have any sponsors you'd like to thank, and is there anything you'd like to say to the fans?
Always, it's my gym, my team, Michael Sullivan. I can't believe how much all of them sacrifice to be able to help me get ready for these fights, and always there and supporting every single one of my supporters and Team Babyface, whether it's a well-wish over Facebook or they're actually able to attend the fight. I ride through it on them. It's amazing. So, and my sponsors, I have Super Tees in Arvada, who put up that wonderful marquee for me. They have been absolutely amazing. Synapse Physical Therapy has been a huge aspect of me being healthy enough to fight. I can guarantee I wouldn't be in the ring right now if it wasn't for them. And Movement Mechanics are fantastic massage therapists, but also have a lot to do with that. And then JTA Group, Delmy Gooch Photography, and Fossil Fuel Energy. They've been great.
Mm-hmm. Maureen, thank you for taking the time to talk. I really appreciate it. Good luck July 25th at RFA 16 against Marion Renew.
Great. Thank you so much.